Have you been there?
You've never been.
Been there?
So that was just a taste of it. I mean, it was a hilarious watch, I have to say. Douglas Murray coming across, as he has done to Muslims for many, many years, as a complete hypocritical tosspot, basically.
Tommy Robinson is being tortured in prison. Imagine being imprisoned and not being able to watch GB News.
Seriously, what a little girl, you can't take, I mean, it isn't Guantanamo Bay, it isn't the Bagram, it isn't a gulag. This guy is a mental weakling. He is a little mental weakling, and if I was a far right activist and I had him as a leader, I would be ashamed.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to another episode of Muslims Uncensored with me, Robert Carter, and Roshan Saleh. It has been a couple of weeks now since our last episode, so I know you are all dying of thirst for more of our reaction to all of the biggest news stories that's happening across the Ummah, and I'm happy to relieve you of your Muslims Uncensored fast. We are back and we have a lot to talk about, but Roshan, Assalamu alaikum, let's just start off. Where have we been? What's going on with the show? Has it been cancelled or something?
No.
Why has it been away for a couple of weeks?
I know where I've been, I don't know where you've been, but I think obviously we were knackered after Ramadan and we needed a little bit of a break. I went abroad, took a little bit of a holiday abroad, and I'll tell you about that a little bit more. I want to speak about where I went to a Muslim country, and there's positives and negatives basically. But I took a bit of a rest. What about you?
While you swanned off to the sunny destination of wherever you were, I was working. So I've been travelling around, covering stories, getting into shenanigans as I usually do. And obviously I don't think the show would be the same without our grandfather Roshan here lecturing us all.
Not quite yet, grandfather, but soon maybe.
Our moral compass and spiritual leader Roshan here complaining and telling everyone off. So we took a little break, but obviously I think it was good because I managed to do some good reporting, I think.
Yes.
Been travelling around and we'll be discussing some of those stories in the show today, inshallah, and reacting to some other more funny, lighter news as well. But tell us a bit about, so you don't want to say where you went?
No, I don't want to say where I went, but it was a Muslim nation, Arab Muslim nation, and it just went there for a bit of a break. And so unfortunately there's a few things going on. Wherever you go in the Muslim world, you have this dichotomy between the Muslim nation that you're looking to explore and enjoy, but it's always a secular country as well, often very westernized. So I went to one of those Arab countries, and it could be any one of like dozens that are very westernized, and so obviously the beaches are full of kind of half naked Western tourists sunbathing, and the local Muslims are so dependent on the euro and the pound and the dollar that they accept the desecration of their own Muslim culture and laws so that they can economically benefit and humiliate themselves and degrade themselves, while these Western tourists who have no respect whatsoever for the Muslim local culture and religion basically do what they want. So that's quite depressing to see. Obviously Muslim nations are beautiful, the food is wonderful, the people are lovely, so it was nice to kind of interact with some of the locals. Unfortunately, when you go there for such a short period of time, it's often a superficial experience, but alhamdulillah I did manage to talk to a few taxi drivers, and alhamdulillah I was heartened because this particular nation I went to is kind of it's a very secular nation, and it's not pro-Israel, but I think if the leader of this nation had his way, it would be in the Israeli camp. And they've moved away from, it's a nation where lots of Muslims are in jail at the moment, and there's no freedom of speech, and they don't speak about Palestine. Yet I went to a Jummah khutbah, and the Imam clearly called for jihad against Israel.
Oh wow!
Which is the major call now across the Muslim world.
That's interesting.
Amongst the masses. So this particular Imam probably put his health and safety at risk by openly speaking out in favor of Palestine and Gaza and calling for jihad against the policy of his own government. So this, I thought, was a very brave thing to do, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, that's interesting because I know obviously religious talk, especially on, helping Gaza or Palestine in any way, you feel like it gets censored a lot in these Muslim countries now because they're in the West's.
I was shocked to see him do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd wonder.
And you know what he did? He told the story of, and forgive me, brothers and sisters, but you'll probably recognize the story that I'm telling now more than I do. And so forgive me if I'm getting the details wrong. I'll keep it very general. He told the story during the khutbah of, I think, either the Sahaba or the Tabi'een, but obviously in the early days of the Islamic Khilafah. And one Muslim woman was basically kidnapped. And the Khilafah at the time, on behalf of this one Muslim woman that was kidnapped by the kuffar, he called for jihad. He made a general call for jihad. And they enacted that jihad and they rescued, alhamdulillah, this Muslim lady. And he was comparing it to now, when literally the Palestinians are being slaughtered in their tens of thousands, if not more. Women and children being slaughtered in the most brutal way. Babies being beheaded by these Israeli monsters. And what does the Muslim world do? Launches a few economic boycotts. Says a few words on social media. And especially our leaders, what did they do? They either in the Israeli camp, they're the Iron Dome for Israel, literally. And there is no call for jihad. Literally zero call from jihad from our so-called leaders.
There is religious leadership calling for it, I know. There's been some major scholars in Pakistan, for example, issuing the call. So obviously I think religious leaders, and even where you went, you were hearing the local imams calling for it. But yeah, there's no appetite for it in the political leadership realm.
Because they're cowards.
That's their job. It's their job to protect.
They are cowards. They will go down in history as the scum of the earth. I pray that Allah gives them their suitable reward in this life and the hereafter.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we are all praying. There is obviously other news happening as well. There's breaking news of a massive earthquake in Turkey, apparently a 6-point something.
Oh, really?
magnitude.
I didn't even know about this.
That's happening just now at the time of this recording. We're going to monitor that and see how it goes. There's obviously the attack that's happened in Indian-occupied Kashmir as well. We'll talk about that briefly in the show. So there's a lot of things happening. But before we get into the hard stuff, I wanted to start off with reacting to some of the funnier, lighter news that's happened because it's a doozy. It's a gem, a rare gem that we get to see on social media. So I think everyone knows who Douglas Murray is, right? Especially our audience. He's been a notorious Islamophobe, basically. A cog in
he's made so many
industry.
Islamophobic comments. I don't think anyone can complain about calling him an Islamophobe.
Yeah, and he's condemned Muslim immigration to Europe. He has a lot of right-wing talking points, which he peddles. And since Israel was engaged in its war crimes in Gaza, he's been there.
Chief cheerleader.
Chief cheerleader. He's been taken on state-sponsored tours of Gaza as well, whilst actual journalists are being blocked from Gaza. He gets welcomed in with the red carpet treatment to do a little propaganda parade.
Embedded with the IDF.
Absolutely embedded with the IDF. So anyway, this guy appeared on Joe Rogan Podcast, a massive platform, and straight away he did what Douglas Murray usually does, which is come off like a bit of a pompous twat, to be honest with you, and just started condemning everyone else. He condemned the comedian Dave Smith for having an opinion about it. He condemned Joe Rogan for platforming anyone who didn't share Douglas Murray's views. And as a result, Douglas Murray ended up being ridiculed, mocked, and humiliated all over the internet as a result. Let's just play a clip now of Joe Rogan's reaction after Douglas Murray's appearance.
Have you been there?
You've never been.
Been there?
At least been there.
Right, that's a good point. You haven't been?
Have you been to the crossing points?
No,
When were you last there at all?
I've never been. Are you allowed to just go to wars? Is
You
that the way
haven't-
that you should at
you
least
just
have the
go to one?
courtesy of going? Can I just...
You should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
all right. There?
I think you have to see. I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you
Okay.
spend a career talking about something.
So that was just a taste of it. I mean, it was a hilarious watch, I have to say. Douglas Murray coming across, as he has done to Muslims for many, many years, as a complete hypocritical tosspot, basically. And finally, people in America, people online are starting to see him for what he really is, as just a complete hypocrite. You know very well, Roshan, you've had this guy before in an interview, didn't you?
Yeah, briefly, I'll tell you about that. But, I mean, you can't go there because Israel's blocking journalists from going there for the last 2 years. And some of the most prominent journalists in the world, like Alex Crawford at Sky News is no friend to the Palestinians, but even she says it's outrageous that Israel is committing she didn't say that it's committing a genocide, but it's obviously getting away with stuff, and it doesn't want journalists to witness what's happening. I mean, the reason why Douglas Murray went there is because he was embedded with the genocidal IDF, and they allowed him in, because he's their biggest cheerleader. So, I mean, it's such a stupid point to make. But yeah, this guy is... I mean, I think he's a posh Tommy Robinson. He says the same thing as Tommy Robinson, but in a posh voice. And obviously, people, especially foreigners, they can be impressed by a posh English accent, can't they? And they can mistake that for intelligence. And this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And I did actually have a ding-dong with him once, about 6 or 7 years ago now. And he cussed 5 pillars for about 5 minutes. And I only had a minute to respond. And instead of actually responding to his stupid points, I said to him, all right, you're commenting on Islam here. Can you recite Surah Al-Fatiha, which a 5-year-old, Muslim child can recite? And he goes, that's stupid. Why are you trying to deflect? And I go, okay, all right, don't do it in Arabic. Do it in English. Just a little bit, because ultimately, if you're professing to comment on Islam, you should know something about the religion.
But I would like to ask Douglas Murray a question. Could he please recite Surah Al-Fatiha in Arabic, which is any Muslim child with a basic knowledge of Islam will be able to recite that surah fluently. Could he do it now, please, live on air?
You just said, Roshan, you just said you didn't care for the views of anyone else. So you can't need to listen to me, and I don't need to listen to you. You said by your own standards, Roshan, that you don't listen to the scholars or anyone else. So why would you listen to me? Of course you will not. Of course you will not.
He can't recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Douglas Murray refused to recite Surah Al-Fatiha, which any Muslim child with no knowledge of Islam can recite. That means that he is unable to do that. That means he is completely ignorant about Islam, and therefore he should not be allowed on any TV program or any radio show.
Was I the one who didn't know what was in your Quran?
He has no right.
Was I the one who didn't know what your prophet said?
Now,
was I the one who didn't even know what your prophet said and did? No,
Mr. Murray,
that was you.
Just do that, and then he couldn't do it.
You should be an expert, right? That was his point in the Joe Rogan podcast. Do you know what he sat there and said? He lectured the comedian and the podcast host Joe Rogan for not being experts, not platforming experts. Why do you have an opinion on this? He talks about Islam all the time. He condemns Islam, talks about it as a backwards and barbaric religion, which shouldn't be allowed in Europe. It should be outlawed, all this type of stuff. The guy doesn't know a word of Arabic, as you showed years ago. Yet he still drones on about it. He shouts down at Muslim women for wearing the niqab as if there's some kind of idiot for doing so. Have you ever been to a Muslim country that isn't a state-sponsored propaganda tour? Have you been to the Middle East other than on an Israeli state visit? You're not an expert on any of the things that you talk about.
I've never seen him in a Muslim country at all.
And he's not a historian. He didn't study history. Why is he talking about it then? He's not an expert on Israel-Palestine. Just because he's interviewed Netanyahu in a friendly way.
Yeah.
Asking him about his book or something. He thinks he's an expert, does he? He's not Jewish, he's not Muslim, he's not Arab, he's not Israeli. What on earth are you doing there?
He's an atheist. He's an atheist, right? I think.
Yeah, he's an atheist.
He kisses Netanyahu's ass all the time. But I don't know. I hope that people can wake up to this guy. The BBC interviewed him. He shouldn't have any mainstream media platforms. I've noticed he's had less than... the BBC used to invite him on Question Time, I think, and very prominent programs. They've done that less, but they did interview him on Newsnight for about 8 minutes. I haven't seen it. Yeah. I don't have any desire to see it. But I think we got a theatre to shut down his... or not just 5 pillars, but obviously the Muslims in general. We got a theatre to deplatform him when he was so outraged last year. It's good to see people taking the piss out of him.
Yeah, he comes from the political side of things where, they condemn the left, they condemn Muslims for being woke, cancel culture warriors, virtue signaling, and trying to censor people's views because they're anti-immigration or they hate on Islam or whatever. They accuse people like us of silencing them all the time, and they bitch and moan about it. But yet, the whole origin of the cancel culture movement that we live in today was the right-wing pro-Israel side.
Oh yeah, he'd cancel us any day. Yeah,
they cancelled Muslims. Palestinians were being cancelled left, right, and centre. And this was before anyone used to talk about cancel culture. This was happening for years and years and years. Anyone who was critical of Israel, critical of Zionism, pro-Palestine was being deplatformed, cancelled, silenced, taken off mainstream media. People's jobs were being lost. People were having their careers and reputations destroyed and wrecked. Yeah. These guys, these types are the cancel culture architects.
Of course.
They literally started this trend, and now that it happens on the right, they bitch and moan about it. But it's literally these guys. So if you want to defeat cancel culture, again, it's all about stopping Israel. You know, it's literally Israel. It's always Israel when it comes to cancel culture. They don't like facts and truth. You know, Mehdi Hassan, he did say one thing I like for once. He actually accused Douglas Murray of cosplaying as a journalist.
What does cosplaying mean? I never know what this word means.
I get accused of it all the time when I dress up like a Muslim, you know.
Oh, like cultural appropriation.
Yeah, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So cosplaying, you're dressing up, having a little pretend that you're or whatever, an Arab. I get accused of it. But at least I don't get accused of cosplaying as a journalist. I think that's very appropriate. I mean, I am actually a journalist, unlike Douglas Murray. Well, there you go.
I know that, I don't know whether you noticed, but a few months ago, he was talking about the Southport attack, and he called it an Islamist attack, basically implying that this the killer, Axel, whatever his name is, was a Muslim, and he wasn't a Muslim. Everyone has, you know, it's a far right talking point, basically. And no matter how many times the police and the authorities say this guy wasn't a Muslim, he comes from a Christian family, there's no indication whatsoever that it was an Islamist attack at all. No matter how many times you say that, the far right will keep repeating these lies again and again.
He's a nasty piece of work. He's a nasty piece of work. He even accused Hamza Yusuf of infiltrating the system and all this stuff. You know, imagine if he said that about a Jewish politician. He said, oh, he's infiltrated the political system here and he's pushing something. You know, it's like, come on.
His legacy will be as a cheerleader for the Gaza genocide. That's Douglas Murray's legacy. He's a pathetic individual. I mean, if anyone should be cancelled, if anyone, he's a charlatan in my opinion, and if anyone should be cancelled, it's actually him.
He definitely shouldn't be on any podcast talking about anything because he's not an expert and he's never been there. So no podcast for Douglas Murray. Well, I think we've covered that very well. There's another really funny story. This one's a doozy. Tommy Robinson, the rough version of Douglas Murray in the UK, a notorious Islamophobe and a convicted criminal, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon, has lost his appeal bid after claiming the prison that he's in is making him ill. So he's in solitary confinement. Yeah. He's saying the conditions that he's in is making him feel
mentally
yeah, and he's
ill.
Very sad about it. He's feeling down. He's feeling blue. Let's play a little explainer video because I think this whole story has a funny element to it, believe it or not. But I'll just get a reaction from a very good video that was produced by a colleague of mine at 5 Pillars.
Tommy Robinson is being tortured in prison. Imagine being imprisoned and not being able to watch GB News. Imagine having a laptop, access to a gym, a pool table. Imagine only being able to have 120 people on your visitors list. No CD player. Only being able to use a phone for 4 hours a day. He gets just 2 hours and 45 minutes a week of free painting and decorating classes and even daily visits from the NHS doctors. Right, because that's starting to sound less like torture and more like a jolly leisure centre. Stephen Yaxley Lennon, also known as Tommy, the far-right political activist Robinson, age 42, was jailed for 18 months last year after repeating false allegations against a Syrian refugee who successfully sued him for libel. Tommy was told that his sentence would be shortened by 4 months if he took down his video with the accusations. He didn't, and instead wanted to portray himself as some sort of martyr.
So there you go. That's a taste. Do you feel sorry for him? Poor
Britain's
Yaxley.
far-right leader, Britain's anti-Muslim hero, is a big girl's blouse.
Big crybaby.
This guy is a crybaby. He's basically a... That's what he is. Sorry for my language. I know I shouldn't use that kind of language. But he's a little girl crybaby. Ooh, little girl in prison. Can't
crying
take
in prison.
Like, literally, he's been broken in the cushiest prison number anyone has ever had. Literally, he's got access to a phone, a laptop, a TV, any visits he wants, social visits. I mean, he's got a gym. He does painting and decorating. I mean, this is not prison. This is literally a little jolly. You know, okay, he's been deprived of his freedom. He can't mouth off on social media. He can't watch GB News. I mean, my definition of torture is watching GB News. You know what I mean? And I don't know, man. Seriously, what a little girl. What a little. He can't take. I mean, it isn't Guantanamo Bay. It isn't Bagram. It isn't a gulag. This guy is a mental weakling. He is a little mental weakling. And if I was a far right activist and I am as a leader, I would be ashamed.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Your leader is a little girl.
Yeah, it's embarrassing, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, it's like they always moan on, these types always moan on about how soft the prison system is. It needs to be tougher. You know, we need to jail foreigners and make life tough for them and teach them a lesson. And then the second he goes in, he starts crying, even though it just looks too soft. I think they should make it a little harder for him. Plus, he's complaining, but it's like, why did you break the law then? It's like, if you didn't want to be there, just don't break the law. Just don't break the law.
Contempt of court.
Stop breaking the law. Do you know what I mean? You're a convicted criminal and he's been to jail multiple times. Why don't you just like be a law-abiding citizen? Do you know what I mean? And stop being a hindrance on
All he had to
society.
do was abide by
the
the court order.
Yeah.
You know, he was basically found guilty of lying about a Syrian refugee.
Yeah,
and
he knows it.
And he did lie about it. It was a blatant lie again and again and again.
Yeah,
and he's defied the court order. Whether he likes it or not, you have to obey the law. I mean, that's what they complain about, immigrants and Muslims not obeying the law. In fact, we do obey the law. He's the lawbreaker. He's the criminal here.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's really, really funny. I just think that, you know, again, it's like he's complaining like, oh, I'm in solitary confinement. I'd love to be out in the public bit. I mean, really? You really want to be in the public bit?
For his own safety.
For his own sake? I mean, that's the thing that everyone, like in America, is being misled. He has this big right-wing fan base that's platforming him in America right now. And they're all saying like, oh, he's a political prisoner and, you know, they're trying to torture him and whatnot. You know, like the reason he's in solitary confinement is for his own safety, because literally he's so hated and despised in this country that he might get killed in prison. Do you know what I mean?
He'd definitely get beaten up. I mean? But you know, by the way, he shouldn't be in prison for this. He should be in prison for inciting riots, because there were riots last summer, okay, and people got hurt. And, you know, there was so much damage done. And it was definitely, there's a correlation between what he said, because he was egging it on all the time. That's what he should be in jail for. And I hope he is prosecuted for that after he comes out for this. Yeah,
I think, you know, this is someone who likes to make money from the work that he does. You know, he's that's what he's known for. And I think that this is a bit of a grift, to be honest. He's in prison complaining when actually it looks like he's in pretty good condition. They've appealed it, and the judge or whatever looked at it and said, you know, there's nothing here. There's nothing. No. I mean,
just be a man and do your time.
Do your time.
Be a man and do your time. Don't whinge about like a 6-month sentence, which is a cushy number. And quite frankly, you're pathetic. You're just pathetic.
Just be a man. Just grow up. Do you know what I mean? And stop breaking the law so much. There is another story. So obviously the Pope Francis, has passed away at the age of 88. You know, I think he's got a legacy. I think a lot of people consider him to have tried to close
one
ties.
of the better ones. Yeah,
he's done outreach with Muslims and interfaith and all this type of stuff, and you know, whatever. I mean, I haven't followed his career that much.
I mean, the Catholic Church. I mean, you weren't a Catholic, were you? Before you converted, you were
C of E.
C of E, yeah.
C of E.
So obviously, the Catholic Church has a very problematic relationship with Muslims historically. They were the ones that did the Spanish Inquisition, for example. You know, chucked the Muslims out of Al-Andalus, as well as the Jews. And of course, then they have the Crusades. And even if it's not about about Muslims, but even with, you know, colonizing South America and killing all those indigenous people over there, it's an institution with blood on its hands. So I'm never going to big up any pope, any head of this institution.
Yeah.
However, I think he was one of the better popes in the sense that he seems to have been a pacifist. He did constantly speak out against war. he did criticize Israel over Gaza as well.
Yeah.
And he sought to, seek the companies of Muslims or have, decent relations between Catholics and Muslims.
I think because he's from Latin America originally, right? I can't remember which country.
Argentina.
Argentina. So yeah, I think they're more understanding of the crimes of imperialism and that sort of thing, because they sort of
little bit,
yeah. So yeah, I get where that's coming from. But what I want to focus on is kind of a Muslim angle to this. Obviously, the question is who's going to be the next pope, and there's a big process that they have. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but there's like an election, and they've got to figure it out, right? Now, one of the candidates that's apparently in the running for this is a bishop from Kazakhstan who is being promoted by the far right in Europe now because of views he's expressed about the Islamic takeover of Europe. Muslims, they're doing stuff. And I just thought it was something we should react to, Roshan. Let's play out some of his comments now. This is, I'm guessing, an older interview.
It's a few years old, I think.
A few years old, where he's talking about Europe and how it's going to be Islamic one day.
This is very serious. Now we're witnessing an invasion. They are not refugees. No, this is invasion. Mass Islamization of Europe, which already went on for at minimum 50, 60 years, Islamization in Europe. But now it is in mass. It is very evident. And so this is a global political agenda by the powerful of the world to destroy Europe culturally and religiously.
So, it's just a taste.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah, we're working towards it. We're doing our best. But, this guy's peddling far-right talking points and conspiracies about an Islamic takeover of Europe.
He's Tommy Robinson in a frock, isn't he?
He is, yeah, exactly. Tommy should have been in the in a different game. He might have got to Pope. But, I think it's just hilarious. I mean, the fact is that this is a guy who represents an institution that has been condemned for its preying on youngsters in Europe for decades.
Yeah, kiddie fiddling. So it's basically kiddie fiddling LTD.
So children in Europe have been preyed upon by, bishops and the clergy from his church for decades, but yet he's obsessed with this Islamic threat to Europe, apparently. And plus, he's talking about things like, Christianity is collapsing in Europe and it's Muslims that are to blame. Why don't you look at your failed church? Like, why? Really? Islam is to blame for all of the fiddling, for all of the people ditching Christianity en masse in Europe? I don't think so. I think it was happening before Muslims even sort of started to arrive en masse. And it's just a joke. All these Christians, rather than dealing with the root problem, the rot that exists in their own circles, and the fact that no one even goes to church anymore, no one looks at any of their religious leadership with any kind of respect, because of all the issues they've got internally, they want to scapegoat Muslims. It's like, deal with your own problems. Do you know what I mean?
This guy, I think, is a bishop of Kazakhstan, which is a disgrace, because that's, he's obviously a big shot in the Catholic Church in Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan, I think, is a majority Muslim country, although a very secular Muslim country. So it's unbelievable that he should be a bishop there with these kind of views. I don't think he's going to be Pope. I don't think anyone should pretend he's going to be Pope, because I think to be a Pope, it's more likely you need to be a cardinal, which is kind of like a senior bishop kind of thingy. Whereas he's more junior. Also, with those kind of views, he'll probably be a bit too controversial to be Pope. But the fact that he is a bishop in Kazakhstan, an important Catholic official, is an absolute disgrace. But I want to get back onto the kiddie fiddling stuff, because it is interesting, because obviously it's a very serious crime, so we shouldn't laugh about it. Robert, why are you laughing? But what you have here is this doctrine, which is not biblical at all. I think it's St. Paul, who is really the inventor of Christianity, as you'll know. Jesus didn't invent Christianity. St. Paul did. And I think he came up with this doctrine, or they interpret his words to say that the leaders should be celibate or whatever. It's not even biblical, I don't think. And because of that, because they're sexually frustrated, these leaders of the church, they have to have some kind of outlet. Any human being has to have outlet for a sex instinct. And their outlet is basically abusing children. And it's gone on an industrial scale. So the Catholic Church, before throwing stones at others, should sort out themselves. But have you noticed, Robert, and I know this wasn't part of the thing that we're going to talk about today. But have you noticed how GB News and others, the far right, have been talking up Easter and how there's a Christian revival going on in this country? Have you? I know you've taken the last few days off, but have you noticed that?
Yeah. What
a load of rubbish!
It's funny, isn't it?
Of course, during Easter and Christmas, churches are more full than usual.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but they are.
A few more people bother to show up
because basically the cultural Christians will turn up, and it's like a tradition. Rather than, I mean, lots of atheists, I'm sure, will turn up. People go there. I remember back in the day, I used, for a period of time, I went to a Methodist school in North Wales, and they used to force us, even the Muslims and the non-Christians, to go to chapel to hear, hymns, sing hymns and whatever. I never sang a thing, obviously. We used to go there under protest, but the kind of people that would turn up for, the churches would all be full, Christmas and Easter. But you'd get atheists turning up. You get people just going there for a laugh, and you get people there going up for like maybe to drink the wine or whatever, and free biscuits. And it's not a sign of the revival of Christianity.
No, it's a joke.
It's just Christianity is on its deathbed in this country, and it's getting worse. But you have this phenomenon of the cultural Christians that don't believe in God. They don't believe in Jesus. That have never read the Bible. But they want to be culturally Christian, mainly because they hate Muslims. And they can see the strength of the Muslims in this country with our mosques full and the fact that we believe in something. So they're clinging on to this vestige of cultural Christianity.
It's desperation, isn't it?
It's
so
desperation.
Desperate. It's so desperate. And I think it comes back to, as well, without expanding this too much, because it'll get complicated, but it's about Britain and British identity. It has there's nothing to it. There's no substance. And by and large, it's part of the collapse of the state religion. That's why, because religion is a huge part of culture. I mean, that's why Islam has its own unique kind of culture. Even though you're from a different part of the world, it's religion that brings us all together and brings us that culture and attracts a lot of converts to Islam as well. They love the culture aspect of it as well as the religious argument and so on. I think that's part of the wider, why Britain has no identity or whatever, and why they hate foreigners. It's because there's nothing else to do to be British, apart from just hate Islam and hate foreigners. There's no other substance to it. But yeah,
do you notice how George Galloway was posting images of himself in church holding a cross after years of literally, I think letting people believe that he was a Muslim. I know people personally telling me that George Galloway told them he was a Muslim. Now, I have discovered some tweets of his saying things like Christ is risen. This was when he was soliciting the Muslim vote. I personally think it's a case of different audiences, because whenever he was you've seen this yourself, right? Whenever he was in a Muslim audience, it was Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Assalamu Alaikum, and the prayer beads and stuff like that. And he was giving out the vibes that he was a Muslim. And whenever he was asked about it directly, I have it on good authority. Some people he told that he was a Muslim. Now, if he wants to deny that, then let him deny it or whatever. But I know personally people who've said that. Or he would say that's between God and me. So he wouldn't say I'm a Christian. But in other circles, I think he has been open about his Christianity. But
he basically clarified it recently. It's now public knowledge that he's Christian.
Yes.
After he was re-elected in the Rochdale by-election, he
took the oath.
On the Bible. He clarified it in an interview as well. He actually said, "No, I've always been Christian." When he was pressured, I think because he was being accused of being some Islamist, vote MP and a sectarian. He said, "No, I've always been Christian." So he completely bottled it there and wouldn't even play the game. But I think that's.
There's nothing wrong with him being a Christian, by the way.
No,
but what I object to is that I don't feel he was open and honest with the Muslims who voted for him. I think he should have been much clearer in his rhetoric. Because I tell you what, if he told them he was a Roman Catholic Christian, it wouldn't have gone against him at all. But I just don't feel he did that.
He is going to appear at a mosque in Rochdale, apparently. I think there's a local election going on and there's a candidate who's stepping up. They're trying to get him elected in Rochdale, and obviously he's Muslim. They're platforming him at a mosque up there.
This is in a couple of days' time, is it? 25th?
Yeah, a couple of days' time. So, again, it'll be interesting to see, is he going to go there and give all the Bismillahs and Mashallahs and all that type of stuff?
Well, this mosque shouldn't platform him, and it's a disgrace that this mosque is platforming him. I mean, George Galloway, I think, in the opinion of most of us, is an Assadist, and he has been very vocal about the downfall of Assad and, you know, what a disaster it's been for Syria. I mean, how will Syrian Arabs, you know, Syrian Sunni Muslims feel about a Sunni mosque platforming this guy and his party, which is a pro-Assad party, in my view? And, you know, it's just an absolute... I mean, he's called me a Takfiri extremist. He's retweeted people that have called Five Pillars MI5. Gosh, Craig Murray's repeatedly called us MI5. He's retweeted Craig Murray. He's got this deputy leader who's constantly attacking, you know, Muslims who are happy that Assad has fallen, and accusing us of being in the NATO camp and in the Israeli camp, etc., etc. Complete lies.
Former
complete
UK
lies.
ambassador to Syria.
No, I'm talking about this Hoz guy. I don't know what it is. A strange weirdo on Twitter, Hoz guy. Oh gosh. He's actually Peter Ford is his deputy, who basically is another Assadist. He's never targeted Five Pillars directly, but I just think it's a disgrace that any mosque, religious institution, can give George Galloway and the Workers' Party a platform. Yeah. How can you accept that kind of leadership if you're a practicing Muslim? Yeah, I think questions need to be asked now, because obviously during the general election, a lot of Muslims voted for the Workers' Party across the country for Gaza, you know, and many Muslims actually criticised us for interviewing Galloway and interviewing Workers' Party candidates during that time for the Syria issue. But, you know, we did it for Gaza. Now that Assad fallen and Muslims are celebrating all over the world, the Workers' Party, many of its individuals has decided, no, we've got to fight on this hill for Assad's like reputation or something. And yeah, I mean, they've been attacking, criticising Muslims, like you say, like. I mean, they'll say things like, "Oh, we're not pro-Assad, we're just pro-resistance, and it's bad for Palestine." And obviously, there's a geopolitical argument to be had here, and I'm not against that. But the way that they have framed their rhetoric since Assad fell, targeting, you know, sincere Muslims, quite frankly, who aren't pro-Israel, who aren't pro-NATO, who aren't pro-West, who aren't Takfiri extremists, and painting them in that light just because we're happy that the Assad regime has fallen because of its murderous campaign against the Muslims of that nation, which amounted to Israeli-style, you know, bombings of civilian areas and hundreds of thousands of people killed. To do that is absolutely disgraceful. Yeah. So for them to still, it's a cheek that they're still soliciting Muslim votes after they've targeted sincere Muslims with completely false rhetoric since the fall of Assad.
Yeah, so I think Muslims need to ask themselves whether it's appropriate to vote for the Workers' Party anymore now that everything that's happened. I think that's a question that needs to be asked, and I don't think that
it was always a marriage of convenience. You know, that they were never a party that represents us as Muslims. On certain issues, on Gaza, maybe they did, but we don't have to, you know, pitch our tent to non-Muslims. Yeah. On a permanent basis. You know, on a temporary basis maybe, but certainly not on a permanent basis. George Galloway has had his day. All right, he's benefited from the Muslim vote several times. Goodbye, George. That's what our message to George Galloway should be. Thanks to the memories. Goodbye, George.
Yeah, absolutely. There's other alternatives available, and we have to build up our own community and not rely on whatever the Workers' Party is doing. Do you know what I mean? We've got to fix ourselves up. There are other options out there, and invest in our own community. You know, and not people who are, you know, playing games or whatever. There is another story that's developed. I covered this story while you were away. It's in East London, Dagenham and Redbridge FC. They caused an absolute row, a scandal, after they sacked the club's only ever Arab influencer after just 3 days in the role over pro-Palestine opinions that she had expressed on Instagram in the past. So you can see her here. Her name is Salma, I forget her, Mashour. Salma Mashour. She's an Egyptian, and basically, she's an influencer, YouTuber. She does sports commentary and has visited loads of football clubs. You know, she's quite known in Egyptian and Arab football circles, quite popular in her own right. She got this dream job at the Daggers, and the whole point of it was to...
Dream job?
Well, if you're into football, I think for her it was a dream job. You know, to go from influencer to a director at an English football club, I think she was, you know, very pleased about it. And the Daggers as well were really pleased about it because it was their chance to to boost their image in the Muslim Arab world, get loads of Arab money in, and just kind of put it out there in the Muslim world, as many football clubs want to do now.
They're a London club, are they? Like a low division London club?
I'm not sure what they're in, Championship or whatever, but
Vauxhall Conference. It's called.
East London club, and they obviously wanted a bit of Arab money, and it came in because the gentleman standing next to her, Marwan Seri, he invested in the club and joined the leadership on the back of this appointment. Anyway, she was given the boot, and it appears as if it was based on a minority of complaints by pro-Israel fans and activists, backed up by pro-Israel media, who highlighted those comments, accused her of being a supporter of terrorism, as many Arabs often are when they talk about Palestine.
What did you say?
And I'll bring up, let's react to it. It's a lengthy post, so I'll read out as quickly as I can. This is the offending post, which was published on Instagram. It's now been deleted. It was published on the 30th of October 2023, so fresh after the war crimes on Gaza began. I remember in the immediate aftermath of October the 7th, my privileged, ignorant self thinking, why would Hamas do that, knowing the devastating repercussions that would ensue? But now I completely understand it. You must be deluded to think that the children who survive this won't grow up and try to do anything they can to defend their land and their homes and to avenge the slaughter of their families. Occupation creates resistance. Israel created Hamas, and self-defense is not terrorism. So no, Piers Morgan, I do not condemn Hamas. I condemn the brutal occupation, apartheid, international law violations, and illegal settlements that created this genocide. If this is terrorism, then you created it. So obviously one side is saying she's expressed support for terrorism there. She's expressed support for a terrorist group. The other side, her supporters, are saying, not really. She's an Arab woman making a general point. She's traumatized by the images coming out of Gaza. She's an Arab with an opinion. And, what else do you expect her to say?
Look, I mean, we might get onto this Hamas deprescription thing a bit later. But, the law says that you can't glorify Hamas. So if you say long live Hamas, then that's against the law. If you say Hamas are wonderful people and, if you praise October the 7th, then that's against the law. What she's doing here is making a general point that, unoccupied people will resist. And I think if that went to court, she wouldn't be found guilty of anything, personally.
I mean, there's obviously context to it. She's not from a political background. She's an Arab woman, traumatized by the crimes being committed and all the images coming out of Gaza. She's deleted it since. I mean, it just seems a bit strange. Just to clarify, the club released a statement. They didn't actually clarify the reason for her sacking, but obviously it comes amid this row where she's being accused of stuff. So I think it's quite clear.
We know why she's been sacked.
This was why she's been sacked. Her business partner, Marwan, has claimed that racism by some of the critics involved in the club might have been to do with the decision. And
so she's been cancelled, basically.
She's being cancelled. And again, it seems like one side is trying to gatekeep what you can and can't say, and it comes back to the question of censorship. I mean,
they make the rules, don't they? They own this country, don't they? The Zionists. They literally make the rules, or they think they make the rules, and we all have to abide by those rules. They put the line in the sand, we can't cross over it.
Yeah.
Arrogant little shits. Sorry. But that's what they think they own this country, and they can police what everybody else says.
It's insane, isn't it? Yeah, it's insane.
Absolutely insane. Literal... and they're scumbags as well. I'm sorry, I have to use this language now. It's gone too far. Literally, a genocide is happening. Okay, we're seeing it every day. It's getting worse, if anything. And these guys are egging it on, and we're doffing our caps to them. They can F off.
It's ridiculous.
Sorry.
I mean, this is...
Are you going to edit this out? I'm not sure, but they can.
And this is Britain after all. Why is a British English football club that's no link to Israel as far as I know of censoring some Arab director they hired, who they wanted to hire because she was an Arab? Like, that was literally the reason they brought her in, because they wanted to connect with the Arab world. Why are they being gagged, silenced, cowed by a small minority? I mean, the petition to get her sacked only got about 550 signatures, and they have thousands.
Why are people scared?
It's ridiculous.
Scared, less. Of Zionists.
Yeah, gutless
what?
cowards.
Stop. Just get rid of this fear, okay?
Yeah.
And even if it costs you, your social media accounts or your job, just look at the people of Palestine, what they've lost.
Well,
it doesn't matter anymore. We're at this situation where the Palestinian people are being exterminated. So we should be risking stuff, quite frankly.
Well, it's cost Redbridge already to take this political stance in support of Israel because the investor has pulled out. Don't know how much he invested, but it was clearly a lot. Egypt hates them now. Their reputation across the Arab and Muslim world is in tatters.
Stop being scared
of genocide
Stop
supporters.
being scared of these utter scumbag genocide supporters. They do not control us. We should not pay heed to anything they say.
Well, there you go. I mean, outrage is continuing. A local mosque criticised them, wrote a letter asking them to reverse the decision, and some local Muslims came out and actually protested outside the ground. I attended it, and it was quite fun to see. But yeah, their reputation is in tatters now, and it's such a shame because they probably could have been one of the wealthier clubs in whatever league that they're in, to be honest with you. Egypt would have loved them, welcomed them with open arms, but there you go. Now Muslims and Arabs hate them.
So there's more cancelling been going on at Heathrow Airport?
They're famous in the Arab world because everyone hates them now because it's basically seen as a Zionist club now, whether they wanted to or not. There is... so there's two more stories we'll get through as quick as we can. The pro-Palestine activist that was detained at Heathrow for wearing a Palestine jumper. He was detained under a Firearms Act, which is an insane one. So he wasn't carrying a firearm. He wasn't actually doing any terrorism. I'll have to bring it up, so maybe just give us your reaction to the story.
So while Robert is bringing that up, all right, it's there.
Let's play it out now.
The search on Section 43, Firearms Act. All right, sir? No. You have information. I thought I'm not in trouble. So, there's a bit of information. I'll go through it in a minute. My colleague will come over and chat to you. Is there a specific reason for this?
It's like you say, they consider it because the flag in your jumper was one. Like the, obviously, it's a pay laws.
So we see.
Suspicion, or?
I think we can stop it there, can't we?
Gosh,
so
that's
again,
insane. That's
it's
crazy.
like it's cancel culture again, isn't it? I mean, literally just a map of Palestine on a jumper, that's considered an arrestable offence. I mean, I hope that is not a just arrest. And the Met Police, whoever did it, I think Heathrow comes under the Met Police. They should be sued for that arrest.
That is insane. That is so insane. A British citizen arrested because of a Palestine image on his hoodie. And the Firearms Act, I mean, what on earth? The guy had no gun. He's not a terrorist, believe it or not. I know he's a Muslim. I know that's somehow linking him to terrorism.
I'm not even sure if he's a Muslim. Was he a Muslim?
I don't even know. I don't even know. But it's insane. The Firearms Act. It wasn't even a terrorism-related arrest.
It's out of control, isn't it?
It's out of
the
control.
Limits to freedom of speech for Muslims and pro-Palestine activists in this country is completely out of control. And the police are the enforcers. You know, they're the enforcers.
And it's humiliating, I think, because the police are supposed to protect and serve British citizens, right? We pay them from our taxes to protect us. And what are they doing? They're literally acting as an arm of Israeli intelligence. They're harassing, bullying, and intimidating and arresting British citizens because they threw a Palestine flag in a way that offends some idiot who supports Israel, some activist who has a vested interest to see the word Palestine criminalized.
The Zionists, Robert,
insane.
The Zionists have an insane amount of power in this country, and there are so few of them, and they exert the control over the boundaries of what we can say in a democracy where freedom of speech is valued. It's out of control, and they need to be put back in their box. They need to be ordinary citizens like anything. If they want to support Israel, I mean, it's disgusting, but whatever. They can do it, all right? But we should be able to support Palestine, and it should be a level playing field, not a minority of genocide supporters lording it over everyone else. Yeah. I'm sick of it. As a British citizen myself, I'm absolutely sick of this. And I think millions of other Brits, Muslim and non-Muslim, share the same opinion as me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
and I couldn't care less if they call me anti-Semitic, okay? Because that word has totally lost its meaning in the hands of these genocide supporters that have weaponized it to silence pro-Palestine activism and anyone that has an ounce of humanity.
Yeah, it's a shame. Everyone's an anti-Semite.
If you haven't been called an anti-Semite, Robert, you're not working hard enough for Palestine.
Yeah, even Jewish activists get called anti-Semites all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, it's literally insane. It's such a joke. And it's a shame because obviously there is like genuine anti-Semitism out there. But Israel and their Zionist proxies have destroyed the actual...
It has no meaning anymore.
Yeah, it has no meaning.
And the biggest cause of anti-Semitism actually is Israel itself.
Yeah.
And Zionism and the actions they're perpetrating on the ground in Gaza. I would actually like to say this openly. I commend Muslims and pro-Palestine activists for their lack of anti-Semitism. Because, let's face it, okay? Allegedly the only Jewish state in the world has been committing a genocide over the last 2 years. That Jewish state is supported by about 80% of the Jews in the world, okay? We're constantly told that by Zionists themselves. So it wouldn't surprise me, quite frankly, if people did conflate, Judaism with these actions. But we don't. We make the differentiation between Zionists and Jews and Zionism and Judaism. We go out of our way to make that distinction again and again and again. And it just proves that we haven't got a racist bone in our body, that we're not anti-Semites, we are anti-Zionists and anti-Zionism and anti-genocide.
Yeah, absolutely. It's true. They really do want to conflate. They talk about how it's anti-Semitic to conflate, but the only ones that really want to conflate it is like legit anti-Semites and Zionists. You know what I mean? They seem to share a bed on that. They really want Israel and Judaism to be synonymous. They're the only ones doing it. They're constantly in breach of their own definition on that, the IHRA, that controversial one. You're not supposed to conflate Zionism and Judaism in that definition. They're the only ones that I can ever see doing it. And it's like they want it to be conflated for that reason. But keeping on this sort of topic direction, there is a major legal bid that's caused an absolute storm in the news that's been launched in the UK. We covered it on the 9th of April. It's the legal bid to lift the UK's Hamas terror status designation by a London-based firm. So these guys pictured are representing the armed Palestinian group and are trying to basically suggest to the government that we should deprescribe this group for a variety of reasons, one of them being like free speech. By designating the group, it cancels a lot of people's ability to speak about the situation in Gaza and Israel properly, among other reasons. So that's been launched, and they've been obviously speaking about it. They've been getting grilled by politicians, by the media, being accused of all sorts of things. I think I actually have a clip of one of the lawyers, Frank McGuinness, who appeared on Talk TV recently. Let's see the exchange and how he handled it.
Which year was that charter passed in?
I don't have it in front of me.
You don't know, do you? You're out of your depth, aren't you?
Hamas using the European Convention on Human Rights to challenge its prescription as a terrorist organisation in the UK. One of the barristers behind that at Garden Court Chambers is Frank McGuinness, who joins me now. Frank, good evening. We hear about barristers taking cases on the taxi rank and so on, especially in criminal cases. Have you decided to take this case?
What do you mean?
Has it been your decision to take this case? You've been instructed and you've decided to take the case?
Who else would have decided to take the case? I don't understand. So of course I decide what cases I take.
How do you sleep at night?
That's a baffling question because, do you want me to answer that question? I will if you want.
Yeah, Hamas are terrorists, aren't they? It's so unbelievably clear.
All right, so I'm going to answer your question. You shouldn't have asked it, but I will answer your question.
I shouldn't have asked it. We have this thing called free speech in this country, so I can ask whatever I like. Perhaps you can answer it.
I will answer the question, it's just you're talking over me. Did you want to hear my answer?
Yeah.
All right, I need you to listen to my answer very carefully because what you've done is extremely dangerous and you shouldn't have asked that question, all right? So please do listen to my response, and when I'm done, I'll say next question, all right? You have just asked me, how do I sleep at night? And what you're trying to do by saying that is you're trying to fix me, you're trying to associate me with my client.
Well, it goes on for a while now,
Yes.
but obviously I think he put him in his place there. He was trying to associate him with his client, and he's obviously not happy about that. But he's done a few media appearances. He's also appeared on the Blood Brothers podcast, so you guys can check it out. Frank McGuinness, one of the solicitors involved in this case. What do you make of it, Roshan? Because obviously it's a sensitive one.
Well, there's two things. One is the deprescription, and the second is the media storm afterwards. Look, I think it's a case which is obviously worth highlighting, and the arguments should be had, because I think many people believe that the decision to put Hamas on the deprescription list was, on the prescription list, the terror list, was a political decision by the Tory government. Now, there are many organisations around the world that are armed organisations which have killed people. But why are only certain organisations on there? Why isn't the IDF on there, for example? The IDF have killed far more people, innocent people, women and children, than Hamas has ever done. And we're talking about multiples of tens of thousands here, not just one or two. So there should be consistency. So I think obviously Hamas is an armed organisation that has killed Israelis, but I think there has to be some consistency on who is on the terror list and who isn't, and therefore it can't just be a political decision. That's my view. So it seems to be inconsistent. So I think the argument needs to be thrashed out. And also, I think the most compelling argument is about the free speech thing, because obviously everyone has to self-censor. Now, Zionists can talk openly and support the IDF. They can talk openly about wanting. Or the fact that women and children being killed is justified, all right? Whereas the pro-Palestinian side has to constantly self-censor. Now, a lot of, I would say the vast majority of pro-Palestinian supporters do not support Hamas. But still, they might support the overall concept of resistance against occupation, which is enshrined. Armed resistance against occupation is actually enshrined in international law. So even talking about that could be construed as supporting Hamas or a terrorist group. So I think it does have a chilling effect on free speech and debate. And I think this, argument should be looked at carefully by the British government. It should be not dismissed out of hand. And there should be a process by which a decision can be come to. It can be arrived at. But the media response and the media storm is an absolute joke. I mean, these lawyers were invited on, especially Frank. I mean, I was doom scrolling Frank McGuinness interviews over the last few days because he's been everywhere and he's not being given the chance to speak. If I was a journalist, I would say, look, Frank, this is highly controversial, what you're asking for, but why, on what grounds are you asking for Hamas to be prescribed? And then when he answers the question, then you can pick it apart. But instead of that, journalists have gone into massive rants. I don't give a crap what journalists have to say. I want to hear what Frank McGuinness has to say because he's the lawyer bringing the case.
I know.
And these journalists, these ignoramus journalists, think that we're interested in their opinion. Yeah. And they won't even allow him to speak. And they ask stupid questions like, how do you sleep at night? And
yeah, what an idiot.
Tom Swarbrick did exactly the same on LBC. Yeah, I don't want to hear what Tom Swarbrick on LBC has to say. I want to hear what Frank McGuinness has to say.
Exactly.
And true journalism is giving him the space to answer the question, and then you can pick apart what he has to say. But instead of just talking over him, that's just nonsense.
Well, that's actually why you should probably watch Dilly's podcast. It's a great podcast because of what Roshan just said. We actually allow Frank to speak, so you can actually learn a thing or two about why he's done it and the arguments that he's put forward.
But the way he shut down the interviewers was really... I like his style. You're talking about, mate. You're out your depth, aren't you, mate?
They're very 2D, these journalists, and they seriously don't know what they're talking about. That's why they come up with dumb questions like, how do you sleep at night? Like, it's not none of your
honestly, Robert, or let's put the shoe on the other foot. If I was talking to a pro-Israel lawyer who had literally spent years studying the evidence, even if I disagreed with him, I would at least allow him to put his point across before cross-examining him. They won't even allow the guy to speak. I mean, where's the democracy? Where's the freedom of speech?
No, they're not real journalists, are they? I mean, this guy's a complete joke. He wouldn't pass. I don't think he has. I don't know. He shouldn't have a qualification in journalism if that's how he performs, because he's terrible.
I think he's one of these Northern Ireland kind of proddy Ulster people.
Oh, I see.
And I met a few like that, you know, and probably pro-Israel, you know, up the union, God save the Queen, that kind of stuff.
Frank actually warned him because he basically said, you know, be careful, because if Israel is found to have committed war crimes and genocide in Gaza, then, you know,
this arrogant little, we didn't actually play this bit, but this arrogant little, you know what, Frank said, you know, do you think that it was a genocide? And he goes, no, I don't think it was genocide. Who cares what you think? Are you an expert? Like the International Criminal Court literally said, or Court of Justice said that there was a plausible case for genocide. Spain thinks it's a genocide. Ireland thinks it's a genocide. South Africa thinks it's a genocide.
Yeah.
And this little pipsqueak thinks his opinion is more important than them.
Well, there you go. Let's see how he goes if he appears more so. Let's see. I mean, obviously, I think the British establishment has already kind of put the message out there that they're not really interested in looking at this. But yeah, let's see where it goes. Obviously, it'll be an interesting story.
But it shouldn't be the British government that decides. It should be lawyers that decide, and a case should be put forward. You know, and it should be a forensic process, not a kind of tweet from David Lammy dismissing a case before he's even looked at it.
I know. Yes, well, let's see how it develops. But yeah, even if it just creates a bit more wiggle room for people to at least discuss what's going on, a bit more freedom.
But you know, Robert, these journalists also, they have put a target on these lawyers' backs. Yeah, you know, because they've clearly, they've basically called them Hamas lawyers. You know, not lawyers representing Hamas. You know, because obviously there's a differentiation between, you know, mass murderers have a right to a defense in this country. Yeah. And the lawyers who represent the mass murderers should not be vilified, because that's enshrined in British law that everyone has a right to a defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they literally have put a target on their backs now.
It's insane,
which should be a police matter.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, the fact is there's many people who went and fought for the IDF in Gaza. Who knows what crimes they've committed? They're now going to return.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like arrested, which they should be. They're going to be wandering around Britain. And then you've got journalists putting targets on solicitors' backs like this. I mean, who knows what's going to happen, God forbid, in the future. You know, it's a dangerous situation, you know, the way the media's handled this. Well, that's most of the topics. Obviously, there is the situation in Kashmir that's developing. I don't know much what we can say about that, but it seems as if an attack has happened on a tourist part of the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. A lot of people have been killed, about 30 or so under people killed so far. And from what I've read, the authorities in India are claiming that it's a group that's fighting against the occupation, the Indian administration of the region. And it's just one chapter in a long history of fighting in that beautiful part of the world over the occupation and the Kashmiris fight for independence. So what do you make of it, Roshan? I guess it's one to monitor.
It's early days. I think it's one to monitor. I don't want to say too much, but obviously this attack has taken place. We don't know who's done it. The Indians are already accusing so-called terrorist groups in Pakistan, with the aid of the Pakistani state, of doing this attack. Modi has cut short a trip to Saudi Arabia to come back to deal with the crisis. The Indian media are going into absolute overdrive with anti-Pakistani rhetoric. The head of the the Pakistani army has called Kashmir Pakistan's jugular vein, you know, obviously expressing support for Kashmir. So I think this is really one to watch. It could blow up. I've heard some respected analysts on Twitter this morning saying that they expect an Indian strike on Pakistan in the coming weeks. So this could be literally the biggest story coming out of the world in the next few weeks. It's one to watch.
So they might target the Pakistan bit of Kashmir.
I don't know. They're going to blame the Pakistani state for this. And already the Indian media is doing that, whipping up the hyperbole at a stage where we don't know what's happened yet, you know. And for me, I mean, the Indians are so despicable. The Indian state is so despicable. This could be a false flag attack. It could be anything, you know. So let's see what's going to happen.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, well, we're going to keep an eye on it. And obviously there are other developing stories as well, like the earthquake in Turkey and everything else. So inshallah, please keep an eye on 5 Pillars. Please like, share and subscribe. It helps the channel immensely, of course. We're going to try and be back a bit more consistently.
Yeah, so generally...
I've got some holiday coming up. There might be a little break there.
Another one.
But yeah, what can I say? We do need a break.
When's your holiday? In about 3 weeks?
Couple of weeks, yeah, something like that. So we'll do as many episodes as we can and then keep it consistent after that.
Basically, brothers and sisters, we'll try and do Muslims Uncensored every week if we're not on holiday. But we tend to be on a holiday like all the time, don't we? So
at this time of year,
we'll try and fit in Muslims Uncensored between our holidays.
Well, if you want to see more consistency in the episodes, you need to support Five Pillars so we can expand our team base, can't we? We can expand our employee count.
Should we do it? Or if one of us isn't here, should we do Muslims Uncensored? I don't think we should.
Alone. That would be a bit.
Or we can get a substitute in.
Or react. Just listen to me for an hour.
I think we can get a substitute for you, but not really for me. So that's the issue here.
I don't know. I think people tune in. Who do you tune in to watch? Seriously, brothers and sisters, tell us in the comments.
I know what they
below.
do. They tune in. Robert is more popular than me because Muslims have this white privilege thing going on. And they see a white face and, he's converted to Islam. That must mean Islam's great because a white person's converted.
I would admit there's like 10% of people who probably watch me just because of the colour of my skin.
I think everyone that watches you
most people, I think, value my work.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it with you? You value my work or my skin colour, Roshan?
I think it's the skin colour. That's why we employed you. A bit of white privilege.
Literally the skin colour. Well, that's good to know. Based on,
I'm not going to praise you, Robert. Let your fan base praise you.
Yeah,
I'm not going to praise you.
They will praise me. There's no doubt about that, as they always do. Thank you very much.
I don't need the praise.
But yeah, based on that revelation,
I'm more secure as a human being.
Based on that revelation, I should bleach my skin. I might get a promotion then because I'm more white, more better. Yeah. But yeah, what can I say? There you go. White is right. What can I say about it? What can I say? White is right, everyone. Well, there you go. That's the end of our episode this week. Please like, share, and subscribe, and leave those comments in the comment section below. We really appreciate the interaction. It helps the channel, and we do also respond to some of those comments, criticisms, and feedbacks as well. It helps to make the YouTube channel more lively. But until next time, brothers and sisters, it's Ma Salama. Assalamu alaikum for now.